All right.
You just said the recording has finished. Wow. The recording has finished. Are you sure, Zencaster? Hello. Welcome to the Anti-Power Hour number
Was
8.
it 8? Yeah.
That's
Ocho.
what my documentation tells me. This is the my birthday episode.
Happy birthday to
Congrats.
Lucy, the one and
Yay.
only, an amazing
Thank you.
co-host.
Um,
How was your birthday?
I haven't done anything in a nice way.
Hmm.
Because I'm 4 years behind the times, I've been playing Animal Crossing on a Switch that I now have, which is exciting. Um, and Animal Crossing wished me a happy birthday, and the animals threw me a party, so that was nice.
Those are some nice animals. I have
Yes.
to disagree. I think you're way more than 4 years behind the times in most regards, though.
That's actually true.
Sure.
But it's almost weirder to be slightly behind the times. Like, I recently decided I like Olivia Rodrigo, which for me is practically, like, she had an album last year, I believe. Like,
Wow.
that's the
This is
most music
progress
I've
for
heard
you. This
in a
is
while.
progress for you.
Well, and also actually seeing Taylor Swift last year technically is.
Oh, you saw Taylor Swift. That's right. I had forgotten about that. That is the
Last year,
most current
I
thing.
only saw millennial women named Taylor last year. The comedian Taylor Tomlinson, who discusses Taylor
Oh,
Swift.
I think I've seen her specials on Netflix or something.
I recommend both Taylors.
They- well, that sounds like fun though. I I know my wife looked into tickets for those shows, but it was too hard. It was almost like a lottery system. So it was
Yeah, my brother made fun of me for. I literally just had a browser open on my phone, but it was for 5 hours, and he thought that was like
Oh
really funny.
yeah.
He was like, "I wouldn't do that for Led Zeppelin." I
Yeah.
was like, "Yes, you would."
Bro, you wouldn't do that for Led Zeppelin? You're insane if
If
you
you're
wouldn't do that for
lying,
Led
yes,
Zeppelin.
you would.
Crazy. Crazy. He's either lying or just wrong.
He's
And
lying. I mean,
okay.
he's.
Well, he would have terrible taste if I would do 10 hours.
I mean, back in the day, people used to stand in line for concert tickets in person.
Wow, what a concept.
I know. Technically, I kind of did that for the second Star Wars prequel, but it was just my friends and I loitering in front of the mall for like 10 hours.
Sounds like the
Star Wars
2000s.
2.
Sounds like the
Yeah, that was
2000s.
actually fun, though. It was fun.
That sounds great. Let's go back to that. Do malls
Mm-hmm.
still exist or were they abolished?
Um, they exist, yeah.
I don't know.
I went to
They
Barnes
exist like
and
birds
Noble
exist.
yesterday. That was almost like the mall. Birds exist. I'm tired of this fucking birds don't exist stuff.
Well, have you ever seen a
Birds
bird
don't
with your own
exist.
two eyes?
Yeah, my grackles are back to my feeder. I'm pumped. I love grackles. Do you know what a grackle is?
No, I was about to ask.
You should fucking Google grackles. They look like oil slicks. They have like this black, like a shiny fur, and they
Hmm.
have these really intense yellow eyes. And birders
Wow.
hate them because
Wow.
they're all cranky sounding and stuff. But
Well,
I think bird people are racist. So.
too bad they're not real. Bird people. Oh, I didn't know bird people exist too.
No, they're like,
Jeez.
oh, I only want a delicate songbird at my feeder. It's fucking. I want those bully birds that punch other birds in the face. Nature.
You want Looney Tunes
rhyme,
birds.
and claw.
you,
Yes.
you want cartoon characters in your backyard.
Well, that was a good podcast. Bye, everybody. Nope, not really.
Solid discussion.
We just had not a meta. We had a pre-podcast
You mean Facebook?
podcast
Oh.
about how we didn't have any topics. I can hear our audience leaving even now. What did we think about discussing? We thought about discussing immigration because people are terrible as usual.
We thought about discussing how there's nothing to talk about, and like the daily news hosts, they just like say bullshit and fill the air.
Well, that's not fucking.
But that's us now. That's what I'm doing.
Wow, we're just like a fucking morning show here at 4 p.m.
Yeah, we're morning at 4 p.m. Well, thanks for starting your day with Lucy and Corey.
Yeah, actually, we would have an amazing morning show where we just wasted your time for hours.
Like every morning show.
Yeah, but I would be really tired and annoyed, so it would actually be terrible.
Could you imagine if we did podcasts in the morning at like 8 a.m.? I think we would be decrepit zombies.
That would be so bad.
Somehow worse than our actual podcast, I imagine.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't watch the State of the Union address. Instead, I went to Barnes and Noble.
There was a State of the Union?
Yeah.
When? No,
Yesterday.
last night.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I did hear. Dude, I'm so proud of myself that I genuinely, I genuinely had no idea what you're referring to.
If you're not doing a drinking game, what's the
That's the
point?
first. How did I not see more of that on my social media? Wow,
Because
I'm so proud of
the
myself.
best thing about Joe Biden is that he's weirdly ignorable, which
Mm,
maybe is bad for shit that matters, but at the same time, it still feels like a
that's
fucking
crazy. I've never. I feel like it's
boy.
been over 10 years, maybe 15 years since I've been into politics for so long that that I wasn't like cognizant. Oh, they're sitting here. Like I stopped watching them a long time ago, but I definitely would constantly hear about them and see comments on them.
I think George Bush's last one, I played a drinking game with beer, so I didn't, die. Beer sips. And the event really just flew by, but I don't really drink anymore. My tolerance is comically low, so any politician could kill me now. Um,
In multiple ways.
yeah, exactly. And they're ridiculous. I did have my first Trump related nightmare a couple days ago. It wasn't really a nightmare, but it
Well,
wasn't
you're
nice.
like
It felt
behind
great.
the times on in like 8 years for that one.
Well, I mean, shit could have happened that I don't remember. I was having a long rambling dream, and at some point, Trump showed up with like a crown, and he had like some dudes who like had like a trad cath vibe. I don't.
Oh my
And I was
god.
like, well, that's not good.
Well, I'm
So
worried. I mean, what if you're sort of prophesizing? I mean, what if you're not dreaming, you're imagining and seeing the
I would
future?
have, I would have loved that part of the dream to have been more nonsensical and less vaguely concerning. It's true.
Man, you got to have better dreams.
Mm, I used to be able to lucid dream, and then I fucking forgot how, which
You
I don't know. That doesn't
you
bode well.
forgot how to lucid dream. That's
I did. Or
something
could
about that.
have.
So I was going to ask if you could lucid dream. You could have gone over and punched Trump in the face in your dream
Uh,
Trump, stolen his crown, worn it, or maybe smashed it because we're anti-power hour here.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
But you could have
But
worn it just for the aesthetic, not the power. Maybe if
yeah, like
you just like
deface it
crowns.
somehow.
That's true. Spray
Well,
painted black to kind of fit with your kind of dark vibe. No offense.
I'm dressed like a ANCAP or a Pittsburgh Steelers fan
Yeah,
today by
or
accident. I don't know
both,
which
or both.
offends me more, to be honest. I don't. But
How
there's
many?
like young
I mean, there's got
people.
to be someone on the Steelers has got to be an ANCAP, probably.
That is a disturbing
They're
statement.
just sharing Rothbard books in the locker room. They're like, they got the
So,
flag.
as someone from Pittsburgh, I hate football. I have multiple uncles involved in sports broadcasting.
Oh, you do?
And yeah,
Like Joe Madden, is he your uncle or
sure,
was
why
he your
not?
uncle?
No, my like local news stuff. My uncle did the play-by-play for the Penguins, the hockey team,
Oh
and my
shit,
uncle John, the mustached conservative, did a bunch of KDKA stuff.
the
And it was
mustache
just like a
conservative.
sports family, and like,
And you're a contrarian.
well, something I don't like almost is I come from a people who think that like the insane shirtless guy going rah is crazy, but they still dutifully watch every football game. Like it's like some vaguely pleasant responsibility, but they're like too cool for the crazy people. I almost find that weirder than being crazy about it.
Oh yeah, you got to go all in. Just go full crazy
Well,
on what you enjoy for sure. I'm in that camp.
I mean, and then my resentment of football has turned into a vaguely political objection to it solely because I secretly wish I'd become a neurologist. And traumatic brain injuries are so bad, and even the cumulative effect of the small hits in football appears to be very bad. So
Right.
it's really boring to watch, and it fucking destroys people in the sense that people live in here. That's all they are. So I kind of think people should probably stop playing it, honestly.
That's probably one of. I mean, I've known you for a while, and that you're rarely this moralizing. about something that's surely voluntary on the part of the players. And
It
I
is.
think even if you find it boring, I don't know. I think there's just lots of risky activities. I mean, we kind of talked about this before the show, but there's many risky activities people enjoy and professions, and I don't know. There's varying degrees of risk averseness.
Anything where you're supposed to hit your head against someone else's head. I know they've tweaked this slightly, but and that's part of the whole proceeding is really bad for you.
I don't
What was it?
I don't disagree with that.
In California, I believe a ban on some variety of youth football failed recently. Youth tackle football, and I was a little conflicted with my rampant statism because I don't know. My mom was like cutting edge because she did not want my brother to play football when he wandered into high school for a while. No offense to him, but it didn't come up because he sat on the bench a lot.
Ooh.
But she knew what was up. He
Ooh.
was the best homeschool touch football player in
And here we are, your brother, our guest tonight, Joseph Steigerwald.
He did text me happy birthday and International Women's Day.
Oh my God, your birthday's on International Women's Day? That's right.
I'm the international woman.
You are the
and
international woman.
Happy new Judas Priest album release day. So
wow.
I'm supposed to celebrate all three.
This might be the best day of your life. Sorry about that.
It's all downhill.
Yeah.
Also, I just
let it out.
I can't do the Taylor Swift and football man thing because the paradox of Taylor Swift is that she is really corporate and like mercenary and incredibly good at business and very capitalist, pejorative and less so sense. But the thing that saves her is that she writes lovely, vulnerable, personable, like just good songs, great songs. But Taylor Swift plus the NFL suddenly to me is purely corporate. Like, yeah, everyone's like, oh, they're so cute together, blah blah, like, and whatever. But there's something about that union that's pure corporate to me, and that it's deeply dull. I don't know.
Well, it's an interesting crossover. I mean, it's like we had the monoculture back for like a few weeks. I feel like,
yeah,
like
that's true,
I felt like
totally.
everyone, even me, who I don't watch football anymore. I used to watch it all the time, but now I still watch the Super Bowl. So I saw like at the Super Bowl, like, oh wow, like that they weren't kidding. She's like up there and involved, and they show her a bunch.
Well, I mean, it was like 50 seconds because people were complaining about the complaining. Anyway, I don't know. But I guess for the Super Bowl, that's a lot.
Well, it's interesting.
For ad space, that would be expensive.
Yeah, like if you compare it to any other individual person being shown, and I'm not really complaining. I don't care either way. I just thought it was humorous, almost seeing her candid reactions and them wanting to show this one guest in the stands.
It's weird for me to like anything super popular, that being...
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you.
Not football. But I've decided I like Olivia Rodrigo now, so...
Oh, good for you.
Really hip this year.
Good for you. You're really improving yourself, I feel like, as a person, based on what you're telling me.
I spent the entire 90s being like, I only like Simon and Garfunkel and the Beatles.
Really?
So.
Man, you sound fun to have been around. What if we knew each other in the 90s?
That was kind of fun. You'd be a baby and you'd be like...
No, I wouldn't be a baby.
Like you're a baby.
No.
You'd have a sweet beard.
Yeah, I had a beard back in the 90s. How old do you think I am? Jeez.
You were a baby at some point.
No, I wasn't, dude. No, I wasn't. What are you talking about?
Alright, fine.
This is crazy. I won't take this slander and libel sitting down. I'll continue sitting down, but metaphorically.
I almost feel like my segue from being hip and cool should be into the political boob situation. So you're the one who said we should talk about this, and now we have to.
All right, everybody. Good night. What?
It's time to talk about breasts as a hot topic, at least briefly. Don't you think it's time?
The political boob situation is maybe the best thing ever said on our show.
What's that fucking scumbag's name? Richard, what's his name?
Hanania,
Yeah.
yes, who
Look him
I,
up on
seems to have inaugurated this discourse. No, because I said before the show I don't want to. I don't want to legitimize this nonsense with airtime on our show. But no, Lucy says we have to talk about the political boob situation. There's a
You
political boob
started it.
situation. It was a
You gave me a
joke
list
in
of
it was a
topics,
joke in the
and then you were like,
messages.
no, just kidding.
It's true. That was not.
I mean,
Not.
we have already talked about sexy cartoon characters or lack thereof on one episode, which also involved Richard Hanania.
I don't remember doing that.
I think we did. It happened.
I mean,
I was
it's
looking on
something
Twitter, and I just see libs
I
of
could see
TikTok.
myself talking about sexy cartoon characters. I just don't recall that exact discussion you're referencing.
Okay, so this chick from Euphoria and some other stuff.
This chick from Euphoria. Wow.
Yeah. Who isn't Zendaya, because that's all I know. Sydney Sweeney, who I don't know who she was really, but there was something about her boobs on Saturday Night Live and how she's blonde, and somehow fucking wokeness is dead and boobs are back, baby. And this is an insane thing to talk about.
Yes.
But there's something there.
There is.
Conservative insanity, and poor Sydney Sweeney and her poor breasts, because I don't envy her being a topic of conversation in this way.
I feel bad for her.
I know, it's troubling.
And she's a good actor too. I've only seen her in season 1 of White Lotus, but great show. And
I'm saying actress now because wokeness is dead. Actress.
Oh, sorry, actress. Great actress.
I think something condescending, more like actressina, little actress lady girl.
The little actress lady girl really shines in White Lotus, even though she's a woman, and it's International Women's Day, so we'll give her a shout out.
Yeah, that's
an
true.
international
We're talking
woman.
about conservatives talking about boobs on International Women's Day, so that's not ideal. But I am sort of unable to look away from conservative social commentary in this way, because it's so on its face hilarious, but the undercurrent is really fucked up. So like, I don't know. And how much like aesthetics means to them, to conservatives, and particularly to really far right people, and like when it's gone wrong, how to them how consequential that is, and how we need to fix it in some authoritarian manner. Like there's a lot there with some fucking lunatic tweeting about how cartoons aren't sexy anymore. I mean, this is nothing, and yet it's a lot.
Well, I guess it always seems like people outside of ideologies that, inside is like these trivial concerns or something. The right wingers probably think that about what left wing people talk about, and in some cases, probably each side maybe has a grain of truth. But yes, this is a particularly bewildering form for the discourse to take, and I think it's beyond parody, to be honest, to making this actress a culture war pivot point. I don't know what reality they inhabit where they're. I really don't. I'm kind of speechless, and I don't know if I have anything smart to say about the topic.
I know we're not going to spend too much time on this, but there is also an article in the Spectator, which is
by your fave, your bestie,
Bridget Fatassi, who I used to communicate a little bit on Twitter because we both wrote for Playboy, which makes her article all the more funny. It begins, "Yay, boobs are back," and Saturday Night Live, blah blah blah. For anyone under the age of 25, they've likely never seen it in their lifetime, as the giggling blonde with an amazing rack has been stamped out of existence. Paywalled. It's fucking paywalled. So whatever political insights about the boobs there are, we're not going to know. We'll never know. But a woman who used to write for Playboy, as did I, thinks that hot blondes with boobs are not just a dying breed, but were extinct.
They were extinct for many years. I mean, I see the light now, and I was really living in darkness, I think, for many years. Um, yeah, I don't know what
I
else to
mean,
say beyond that.
I don't. There's just something. I don't like. It's not all about me, man. But the amount, the way to feel really cool and edgy on the internet is to have like a nose piercing or unnatural hair colors and have a picture and then fucking wait for a conservative to be like, oh, your fucking nose ring means you hate your father and stuff, you know? And like, there's just like a whole thing that is incessant about, you know, blue haired SJWs or
Yeah,
whatever we're calling them now, nose piercings, you know, things like that. And as much as I'd like to be the edgiest person in all the land, it's fucking outfits, man. And guess how you know blondes. I'm checking her see if she has any roots, which I don't see, but odds are a blonde is not a real blonde. But the Lord could have blessed them with blonde hair, and that's what matters. But come the transhumanist revolution, I'm gonna fucking grow some blue hair directly out of my scalp.
I'm so enjoying your commentary on this. It's yeah, it might be one of the most parody like viewpoints, I would say, when conservatives get really up in arms over minor deviations from like very narrow traditional beauty standards. And like you said, this all takes on an enormous role like the far right and aesthetics and beauty ideals, and like it's just weird, man. It's like a perfect illustration of like the underlying logic or lack thereof of the entire conservative worldview. You know, that is for the same thing for its own sake, for what has been done for its own sake, and any sort of minor change or deviation or act of autonomy on the part of people living today or tomorrow is like a spit in the faces of established wisdoms. It's just like, man, like just let people have blue hair. It's totally deranged, I think.
And this became more of a thing when like non-natural hair colors became more acceptable in more sort of work circles than they had been like the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel less edgy, but it's also great because you don't have to fucking re-dye your hair if you need to work in an office necessarily.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it became really, you know, kind of trendy, and yet it was the SJWs. And a lot of it comes down to this does not turn me on as a man, and therefore it is bad, it is insidious, it is probably some sort of top-down plot to make women less hot,
Right.
and we have to do something, and college is probably to blame.
That's yeah, that's a good summation of that. It's true. You're connecting it specifically like patriarchal standards of like the male gaze, I guess, what you're saying. Like, yeah, that's true. But although then it's ironic, as you were saying, with the actual article in question being written by a woman, as you pointed out before.
I almost think, I mean, a man could write that, but if a man wrote that, I don't know if fucking Return of Kings still exists, which was a nightmare website from the earlier 2010s. Like, it was so patriarchy, like fucking Roosh V, whatever his name was, who's like, rape is
Oh,
great.
yeah.
I used to be really tolerant on Facebook. I'm no longer on Facebook. But I once, you know, I was friends with many libertarian I didn't actually know in real life. I once defriended someone solely for posting a single link to Return of Kings because there's literally no,
Seems reasonable.
there's no. So yeah, like a woman can be like, haha, breasts are back finally. But I don't know. There's like the youth today like to name all sorts of micro subcultures and be like Barbiecore, Bimbocore, or whatever. And you can sound less ridiculous when you do that, even though I'm not partial to it. But I don't know. I don't understand this article, and I never will because it's paywalled. just
Well,
like boobs used to be paywalled, and now they're free. I guess.
no, it's a mystery. This recent hysteria, I guess, to use a phrase, over this issue by conservatives.
I mean,
I
there.
go ahead.
I was like, it's like there's. It just comes down to, and this is not the top tier issue of our time, but like this sense that women are obligated to look hot
Yeah,
by my standards,
yeah,
by at worst blatantly like Nazi propaganda poster,
yeah,
milk maiden
yeah,
standards, but at least anything you wear, it has to be like the makeup has to only enhance your features, so like a man can't tell you're wearing it except just a little bit maybe. um Everything has to be about enhancing how hot you are, but not too much, because that would also be suspicious if you're wearing too much makeup. And like that's what you're supposed to do, and it
Well,
seems
that's
they have no sense.
another underlying paradox with this love that conservatives have in the last not even a week over for Sydney Sweeney wearing low cut dress on SNL because you know, uh, depending on the time of the day, conservatives will lambast that and for sexualizing people and like promoting like casual sex or lust or looking at other women that you're not married to, or all these things, just all of that goes out the window immediately. Why? I don't know, because they want to push this mutually exclusive narrative that now this is now this is a conservative triumph. It's like, what?
I think some really religious people maybe are at least consistent on this point, like, oh no, lustful thoughts are being provoked. Maybe is it because this was like a national, like we were talking about monoculture, like Saturday Night Live, like that's network TV for you. Is that why boobs are back on network TV? Is
That's
that
funny. That's funny. I don't know. I mean, no one really watches network TV. I mean, I guarantee the vast majority of people talking about this didn't watch SNL or didn't even watch the skits or whatever. They just saw the images. Um,
I just the internet is so annoying.
well, what do you think we're participating in right now, Lucy?
Year do you think the internet was its peak in terms of both the discourse and the technology? I'm thinking like
I was
2014.
gonna say that. I was gonna say the exact same thing. But maybe this is like we're being boomers. Like back in our day, the internet was better. But yeah, my
Well,
my thought is like before Trump, like man, during Obama, I who would have thought that it could get worse and more polarizing? But yeah, compared to
so much
compared to
worse.
now, 2014, 2013, something like that, you had most of the internet infrastructure that exists now that I give a shit about. And
I mean, we were already getting too corporate and social media and tidy walled gardeny.
yes,
But I mean, we can't even have social media that has like a chronological order anymore. Some very aggressive algorithms.
sure,
Search engines actually getting worse.
yeah,
In terms of like how helpful they are, and AI is going to make that worse
yes,
for years.
yeah, lots of
I think someday.
lots of noise. Yeah,
I'm not like a pessimist. I don't think it's gonna all like collapse and like everything will suck forever. But
no,
AI is gonna make the internet even worse for at least several years. Is my
I
grand
think maybe worse, but maybe better on margins. I really don't know. Especially on the back end of stuff, I'm sure it'll be really useful for stuff that maybe you don't see when you're just like using the internet, like a normal, like everyday person. But yeah, I agree. Tons of noise. I mean, they're already, we've already been in that phase for a while though. Google has been near unusable. Depending on if you like want to find out how to do something or find a recipe or find thoughts on something, you're basically inundated with paid for advertisements that are disguised as just like not advertisements. That's why with everything on Google, you have to add Reddit to your search, and then you get actual. This is what I've done for years. This is what
yeah.
so you get Reddit posts that are anywhere from 6 months to 10 years old, and you get actual human beings like commenting on the topic, not paid to push some particular product on you.
To be fair, Google also suggests you add Reddit because they've given up too. I guess at least when I start
Yeah, well, I'm not
searching.
surprised. I'm not surprised. It
I don't
really is
know.
unbelievable.
Recipes I find okay, but I wasn't looking up recipes like 10 years ago, so I don't know if
But
that's
it's
still
like you just
worth.
don't find actual or restaurants or anything. It's all obviously this was just some travel website that the restaurants pay for advertising on. Like there's no real person's
I mean,
opinion behind it.
restaurants also have famously terrible websites where it's like, watch this flash animation about our theory of food, and it's like,
What?
here's the menu and the hours.
That's like a really good stand up bit to me. I don't know. That really got to me. Very true. Ring is very true to my experience. But no, yeah, just add Reddit to it if you weren't aware of this amazing life altering advice. Your use of Google and the internet and finding actual human beings with actual opinions and useful advice. Just do that.
Well, I mean, maybe it's reassuring that Reddit is. I mean, sometimes it's not humans, but we're talking about trusting
No,
actual humans posting stuff a lot of the time, as opposed to the infrastructure of the internet. So that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I mean, and I don't know how much more. I mean, Reddit always has something going on, and it's not perfect, obviously, far, far, far from perfect. But I just find that's such a useful way to counter what you're talking about, where search engines are just filled with noise now, and they're going to be more and more, and social media more and more noise too with the bots and with AI. So social media hopefully will figure out a way to curate those things out of it. Twitter has like gone the reverse direction in the last few years, so that's good.
You gotta come over to Blue Sky, man. It's like little baby Twitter, but it's actually pretty active.
Little baby Twitter.
It has no DMs, but come on over. We should all go to Blue Sky because Twitter is so bad now. It's impressive.
I feel like every day I wake up, I look at the sun.
Don't look directly at the sun.
I look directly into the sun until my pupils burn off.
Cool.
And I think I'm going to join a non-Twitter social media today. And then I don't.
I tried to get you when it was invite only.
I understand. I've been given invites, yes, but fucking guys, this social media is this imperialist colonizing force, and the redundancy of it all. Like until Twitter, literally, like I still know tons of people on there. Yes, it's way worse than it was because of the bots and my lord, the anti-Semitism and other racisms. But nevertheless, I really am so not into like adding another. I don't use fucking Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or anything. I just have a like Twitter and Facebook because I have my friends on there.
I miss Instagram, but I don't want Mark Zuckerberg all up in my business.
There's nothing you can do about that. I'm sorry. It's gonna happen. He's behind you.
Fuck.
There he is, that red guy.
Chiropractor. So
what?
My brother used to be the chiropractor for Mark Zuckerberg. So
your brother, the one we referenced earlier?
No, a different one.
Fuck, how many brothers do you have?
1.5, technically speaking.
Oh, okay. Okay, but isn't chiropractic bullshit? Not to call out your half brother on our widely watched show, but
a lot of things are bullshit.
A lot of things are bullshit. Are you Trump? What kind of response is that?
Someone who has way too many loved ones who believe way too many health things that are.
Admittedly, I think maybe it can alleviate pain, but there's a lot of pseudoscience, and with my understanding of chiropractic, people need to be safe as fuck if they're trying to pursue that to alleviate back pain or other pain.
Yeah, the thing about chiropractors is almost none of them can stay in their own lane, assuming that their lane is real. You know?
Right.
You know them, and in the lobby, there's a poster about not vaccinating, and they think they tell you they can fix anything by doing this. And
like New Age.
So if you ever meet a chiropractor who thinks all chiropractors are trash, that's probably a good chiropractor. But I've also heard shit about people getting like a brain aneurysm from a neck adjustment. So
not your average chiropractor.
I've gone to chiropractors.
Oh yeah? Well, how did you feel? Did you live? Did you survive to tell the tale?
I did. One of them, who did in fact literally have an anti-vax poster in the living room, which is great.
Were you swayed?
Oh yeah. I removed all the vaccinations from the doctor.
You sucked him out.
He got me to stand up more straight.
Ew, why would
But
you
the
do that?
problem was that my left leg is all fucked up. So if I stand up straight, it actually really hurts. So I was like, wow, my posture is great.
Oh, there's a
But like,
reason
it
you
means I
were.
can't do it.
There's a
Yeah,
reason you
can't
weren't
get done.
standing up straight. What
I
happened?
almost feel like he did something, right? But I've actually been wondering because I come from a land of a lot of bullshit stuff. Like, why would homeopathy ever work?
Agreed.
It's like the logic of vaccines for like uh, it's like a dumb version of the logic of vaccines. Hair of the dog will fix it, you know? Like a little bit of the bad thing will fix the thing. Which is what vaccines initially that's that's the
Yeah,
whole thing.
that's a good
But
point. You've swayed
they
me.
don't
You've
it doesn't
swayed me. You've swayed
it
me
doesn't
completely. If that's what you were intending.
also apparently in America an osteopath is like an MD with sort of an MD but also a bunch of crap like chiropractor-esque nonsense foundations. So like an osteopath in Europe is nothing. That's just like a total quack. An
Oh,
osteopath
really?
in America is like a doctor that learned a bunch of dumb shit along with some real shit. So I don't know.
Huh.
There's some weird stuff. Or like Europe finally stopped like insurance and stuff stopped sending people to like homeopaths recently. Like Europe has finally
Just
realized that that's
recently?
not anything. Dude, King Charles went to one,
That's yeah.
and then
Well,
he was like, "Oh
sure,
wait, I have
sure. But
cancer. Never
the
mind."
elites always are into the weird. You know, I'm. That's interesting that only recently they stopped with
Yeah, there's
insurance.
like a shift apparently. They used to
That
say,
well,
"Oh yeah, go to this."
well, that's
Sure.
good. That's good. I mean, that's like a weirdly positive development in that realm for recent. For the last 5 years, 4 years. Because I feel like that stuff is only maybe it's just anecdotal or distorted by the kind of people who are allowed on the internet. But it feels like those things have strengthened in terms of supporters,
Well, to be
opposed to Western medicine or whatever they want to call their views.
the most as generous as I'm going to be, the more you crack down on what is usually bad health information, you're going to get even more people who are like, they don't want you to know the truth. You know? Like, because
Yeah.
that's how human beings react. Like, that's what we do. So, both practically and arguably on principle, like, cracking down on the information is a mistake. It backfires
Oh well,
later.
no, yeah. But it depends on what you mean by cracking down.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
but yeah, I mean, like anything else, it can instigate a sort of backlash and strengthen the thing. Far beyond what it would have been in the absence of cracking down. I agree, but it depends.
But God knows, 5 years ago, the SJW Twitter was demonstrably better.
Um,
So, ideally, the internet would be full of, varying degrees of moderation on various places, Like, that would be fine. That's the internet. I can
true.
stay away from,
That's true.
Stormfront, wherever the fuck is.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder how long that'll last with a place like Twitter. Um, I guess it seems like everyone's maybe kind of trying to become more numb to it. I know I am.
In terms of just horrible shit lurking
Just
in
like yeah, in the
tweets.
replies or sometimes the promoted tweets as well.
Yeah.
Um, it's really disappointing to see. Um, but in a weird way, maybe maybe the silver lining. I've also thought because it's the debate we've been having forever, but um, this stuff isn't necessarily becoming more popular because of what I'm seeing. Maybe that's becoming more visible what people were already believing
Yeah.
in. But then you get more traction, more visibility for those things, and maybe they get more supporters thanks to the increased visibility. Um, but then maybe it makes their insanity and hatred more apparent uh, to more people. I can see kind of arguments going each direction.
I don't know. I don't feel comfortable deciding how much worse certain things have gotten or not, but certainly rhetoric um, you know, like when Tucker Carlson's come up with people, I'm like, I don't know if he's a white nationalist. Probably not. Has he laundered white nationalist conspiracy theories to a mainstream audience? He sure has.
Yeah.
So there are
Yeah.
certain things like Great Replacement shit. Man, is that like a
Yeah,
normal
that's
thing
more
now
the
on the
thing.
right,
Yeah.
which is pretty twisted.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not saying I would still overall prefer to go back to the old Twitter regime, because I would just rather, it's a better psychic experience, I think, for me and everyone else to not
Mm-hmm.
log on and see multiple replies that are calling you a Jew or whatever,
Cool.
like that. That really, I didn't use Twitter for a long time, and huge uptick with the new rules. Obviously, I would prefer to not have to deal with that, regardless of the
Yeah.
pros and cons I just weighed out. Um, but yeah, but maybe that's a good. Maybe the your point about great replacement theory become more popular is a reason to talk about immigration, which we kind of thought about discussing because it's just been such a hot topic right now, and it shouldn't be. I mean, that's my viewpoint anyway, right? Obviously, and I know you agree. There isn't a border crisis. It's not. The border crisis is the border, and unfortunately now it looks like this election is going to be dominated in part by this manufactured um, nonsense.
It feels like that is the easiest cudgel to wield successfully to freak people out for some reason. You know, you want to stir up other prejudices. Like, you can get somewhere, sure, but like something about immigration just really works, and
Yeah.
people will even forget about it. You know, because it's not really affecting their daily life. But then
No.
we better stir it up some more. Oh, look at the caravan over there. Shit, this is a
Yeah.
real problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's like foreign policy in that way, where it really doesn't have much, like you said, this direct impact on most Americans' everyday life. But then, man, is that a useful fear mongering concept of some invading force, some threat outside of the country that is unlike you? So give the
That's
government
true,
all the
actually.
power.
An invading force. I mean, that's what they do. They try to shift immigration into a foreign policy military-esque problem by talking about it like
It's all
it's
the same thing for them. It's all the same thing, and that's why they want to just put the military on the border and basically just increasingly militarize the border, and want to use the military to enforce border laws.
which is insane on so many different levels.
Few.
And the shiny new libertarian party takeover people tend to be squarely on the side of, well, they're not libertarians and they're not anarchists, whatever they're calling themselves, because closed border doesn't go with either of those philosophies. And even if you're speaking purely selfishly about these theoretical people who are probably white, odds are, good chance they're men, odds are, border militarization can actually affect you. There is a Supreme Court precedent from the 70s where the Border Patrol has more fucking sway over you than you'd think if you live within 100 miles of a border, which turns out to be 2/3 of America.
Yeah.
For a hot minute on YouTube, there was like a really delightfully terse, like, redneck white guy who'd go to internal immigration checkpoints and like not obey the law and stuff. I miss those presumably right-wing white guys because they were at least doing something there. The Fourth Amendment gets destroyed.
Yeah.
It's it's federal law enforcement, which conservatives suddenly pretend to hate because they suddenly pretend to hate the FBI since the FBI got up in Trump's business.
The FBI is woke.
That is the problem with the FBI.
The FBI is woke.
That's true. But like, it can affect you.
Oh,
like,
sure, yeah.
They have white Hispanics. They have white immigrants. They have internal immigration checkpoints. The Fourth Amendment has enough health problems without the border, and when you go to the border, it's like there's and the more drones to surveil. Like,
Yeah.
It's so obvious that it should translate in some way to if nothing else, a selfish fear on their part of a militarized border, and it never does. It never does. It drives me insane.
Yeah, that the what you're saying about how many people in America live within that border zone is like you should look up the listeners should look up the like the infographic that shows that I've seen. That's kind of mind blowing. I remember seeing that years ago. Like, wow, as if there you needed more reason to think these were draconian and authoritarian measures. Like, yeah, they can and do include many Americans in the domain of their authority, and it's just remarkable that they don't seem to care or talk about that. The border is just this thing that's over there, and of course, the vast majority of Americans, when they're not consciously thinking about and animated by xenophobic prejudice and dividing the world into people with government papers and people without them, as if that was morally relevant. When people aren't thinking of those things, they're cooperating and interacting with and associating with immigrants all the time in their everyday lives for all sorts of things and enriching their lives. And so those are the unseen costs too, then, when you just don't have those people around to associate with or trade with or whatever, and because they've been locked in some detainment center or deported, or just killed trying to get across the border or something. Yeah, it's and with libertarians, I mean, there's a few issues that are more obvious from the libertarian perspective, and it's one of the most depressing things to me that so much of the libertarian community is twisted themselves into knots to defend such patently unlibertarian views at such a critical time, um, is beyond reprehensible, and it seems like a giant exercise in self-delusion to me. Um, every single libertarian argument implies pro-immigration and open borders.
There's a guy on Twitter. What was it? Ace Anarchist, I
Yeah, I
believe
know
is his
Ace.
username.
Seems pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought he might have been a little ANCAP-y at
He's like
initially. I kind
pretty
of
much an
think
ANCAP.
he got more. I think he might be market anarchist now.
My read on Ace is he's an ANCAP who's very sympathetic and friendly with the more market anarchist stuff, and he spends a lot of his time trying to do what I'm saying and correct people's self-delusion, if they are operating in good faith, of people with similar views that have that bad views on borders, which he doesn't. He has great views on that.
I thought he used market anarchist at some point. Maybe not. If God knows if
Oh
he's
yeah,
an
maybe.
ANCAP and he's fucking given them a much better name. But he hit upon oh, okay, so people who say we have a welfare state, so until we have to get rid of that first, and then we'll open the borders. And his refutation is, okay, how about you can't have any children until we get rid of the welfare state?
Yeah.
Because as soon as you have, like, that's my tax burden is increased, like the potential they could go on welfare, like, my God, like, of course I have a direct say in how many children you get to have.
Yeah.
And people don't think that's valid. I think that's perfect,
Oh yeah, no.
because it's the same.
It lays bare the obvious nonsense of viewing a new person crossing the line into entering the country, or just popping into existence in the country, either of those, as aggressing against other people because of government payments or usage of government services. No, everyone in the country uses those things.
I mean, if we can't move and we can't, have children, actually, children is more fraud, but that's a different matter. Then we kind of can't do anything without everyone else's say so.
Yeah. Oh,
And they don't
sure.
actually believe in that as much as they're
No, it's only this issue because they're animated by what they call the regime and its fear mongering and paranoia. And they don't, and they proclaim that they're free thinkers when they see the nonsense of the regime fear mongering about, say, war or overseas terror or terrorism or those sorts of things. Especially during the Bush era, and fear mongering about those things to strengthen the state um, and suppress civil rights. I feel like the same group sees through it so easily when that's the issue. But this is the same logic of
or
look
they
over
did.
there, or they did, but look, and this is the same logic of look over there. These people are a threat to you, crime, terrorism, etc. And so we need to strengthen the state, and in almost the exact same ways in terms of as a giant militarized security apparatus to solve this problem. And so give us that power, and they're
Well,
okay
see,
with
if
it there.
you magically request a completely quarantined militarized law enforcement apparatus, but it's just for immigrants, I swear. And
Oh,
it'll just be totally
oh,
separate from the
you
government.
you mean it's just for
And that,
immigrants? You mean it's not
yeah,
going to apply to me as a
no.
American person? Oh,
And they'll never work with like
I didn't think of
the
that.
DEA or the NSA and use what was it, parallel construction, in case they need. Oh, we just found a big immigration terrorism drug ring, so let's all chat. Federal law enforcement actually chats all the time, except when it like the Oklahoma City bombing or 9/11 is about to happen, and then they don't make a phone call.
I didn't realize it was just for immigrants, though. You've kind of swayed me on the issue. That's a really great point that it would only apply to that group of people that over there. And I guess sure, my all my ancestors are immigrants, but they're from Europe. That's
Oh,
very
for
different
some
issue.
way that I couldn't possibly elaborate on,
I,
why it's different.
another argument line of thought I like is these discussions, the baby one, yes, that's illustrative. There's another one though that I know Chris Freeman likes to repeat, and Chris is kind of more neoliberally, I guess, so agree with him sometimes but disagree with others. And but he's on this he's great, and his the logic of, well, we have to get rid of this other intervention, the welfare state, um, to have freedom in this area, immigration. And there's an interesting parallel with say releasing nonviolent drug offenders from prison. It's like
Mhm.
surely many of them are going to rely on welfare, at least at first. Many of them are going to use government services. Many of them are going to perhaps be at risk of criminal activity. All the same sorts of arguments apply to just letting nonviolent drug offenders out of prison that none of these people would ever, hopefully, in their right mind, support. It's this weird, moderating, supposedly but not really pragmatic posturing that, oh well, it's just we can't have open borders now. We'll have it later when we get rid of these other things. That applies to many things, and it starts one by one to rule out also every libertarian reform that we can think of now in the short term. And it weirdly mirrors too, and maybe there's some um, deranged ancestral parallel here, but with a lot of these terrible anti-immigration libertarian in quotes arguments coming from Hoppe, who himself was a Marxist. It's an interesting parallel because it's the same logic that I think a lot of socialists and Marxists fall into, with we need authoritarianism now, but freedom later. We can't have freedom
Of
now.
course, yeah,
We can't have it
yeah.
right now. There's these other things, these other concerns, right? We need to have the government now. But obviously, I'm on your side. Obviously, I agree with you. Obviously, in the long run, it'll be fine. We'll have freedom after this date here, the revolution or whatever. And it's just really annoying to see that argument pop up in different
It's a
circles.
bit naive somehow, and
A little
yet,
bit, maybe.
well, maybe we're naive if we even give them this much benefit of the doubt to think that it's anything beyond a knee-jerk, bigoted sort of cringing. But
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of
there's
it is
also a
that.
there's a programming aspect where America, other thing. Well, we're more important because then they're over there. I mean, there's just some basic shit that we have. Everybody has shoved into their brains that
Yeah,
isn't has any moral foundation whatsoever. But
yeah.
libertarians and anarchists absolutely, if they don't know, but there's no
That's what
way
I
they
don't
don't
understand.
see
It's so
that.
obvious, and in those cases where non-libertarians, non-anarchists, I can a little more see why it coheres with the rest of your views and your
Yeah.
worldview to oppose immigration. But with libertarians, I feel like it's more infuriating to talk to someone who feels like they're twisting themselves into knots, to defend a view and spit out a
Well,
view
see,
that's not doesn't follow.
opening the border is somehow more status because I forget, but I
Well, it would
believe
be the
it's
state doing it, so it's obviously more status.
well, I mean that does track with the prison thing, letting people out of prison. Well, the state is doing so some and
How dare the
opening the
state do
border.
anything? How dare the state repeal laws and
Is
fire
there
agents? How dare the state decrease its size?
Of course, next time maybe we'll talk about fucking Heritage Foundation and their whole little plot to,
Or not.
well, to cut government supposedly, and by that I mean just fucking take over all the institutions that we would like to
Yeah,
get rid of, but
we're gonna cut
fill them with
government, grow
heritage
government.
runes. Yeah, I don't know why I'm so like. I feel like I've only just occurred to me that this is what happens, and people frequently sell it in a way that would have sounded good to me if I wasn't paying attention. You know, like literal. Let's not go full Nazi Germany. Let me not say it like that. But
Hold on, Lucy. Slow down.
you know, when Hitler showed up, oh, got rid of fucking Hindenburg. This old, you know, we gotta change things up. We gotta get some new, like, fresh guys in to really,
No,
like.
no, Lucy went full Nazi. No.
I mean, it's like when it finally occurred to me that there were, you know, anti-state, far-right people.
Yeah.
And there's more of them than just like Randy Weaver sitting in his house hiding from society. Like there is a contingent that styles itself as anti-state
Yeah.
in a way that's really bad.
Yeah, well, it's just anti-American federal government. That's all it is. So many libertarians and anarchists who also, and for right reasons, oppose the American federal government, then ally with and fall for the arguments of people who oppose the American federal government, but don't really oppose plenty of other governments, especially their imagined hypothetical governments that they want to bring about.
I'm trying to remember, what did I see? I don't know when it was from the last year. The Libertarian Party national account retweeting someone who wrote, and I quote because it's seared into my brain: "States' rights are human rights."
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised that sort of. Yeah, I mean, I don't even. What are you supposed to say to that sort of thinking?
That's so fundamentally wrong that I can't, and so fundamentally unlibertarian that it
Yeah.
makes my brain leak out my ears.
No, yeah, it's just it's many libertarians. It feels polarized into especially by certain historical conflicts and ongoing
Benny, but I'm sure there's
political
some.
issues. Yeah, no, it's just into thinking that this is decentralization and not thinking through how actual human rights would fare under this
Mm-hmm.
apparent decentralized regime.
And again, if we're talking about America, yes, America is really big, perhaps too big. States are also, as in American states, are also quite large. Some of which
Right,
are larger than many countries.
right, right.
You know, when you start getting down to cities, we can talk a little more. But
No, it's just I don't know
your
why.
family can oppress you. It happens all the time, and that's fine because they like that.
Oh no, yeah, yeah, and maybe just to segue because we're talking about the far right. Because I wanted to discuss, there maybe there's reasons for optimism. I know last time we discussed that poll about like a startlingly high number of people, especially young people, entertaining or directly endorsing Holocaust denial, and then just the other, yeah,
Gen Z and younger, I think. Like,
and then there was just another poll that seemed to totally not replicate that, and even put a lot of it in dispute, and had much lower numbers on Holocaust denial views, and so maybe cause for optimism. I mean, polling's weird, I guess. I mean, we talked about this last time, and I feel like my reaction was like, man, that seems higher than I would think. But either way, it seems maybe like an issue, even if that's too high. And then my reaction, I feel like now is like maybe that's lower than you'd think, especially because people want to keep that view very concealed and behind closed doors.
right.
But even if it's lower slightly, I mean, either way, you could always do better. I feel like on that topic, and sort of I feel like people really underrate how common it is, and I'm almost pushing against being too optimistic based on this recent poll, but yeah, I guess I'm just many minds on it.
I mean,
But
the previous poll appeared to be like going on a third of Gen Z, and then suddenly this new thing is like single digit, right? Am I
yeah,
wrong?
yeah,
It was
that's
like
that. Yeah,
a very
yes,
dramatic
yes, it
difference.
was huge. It was huge. So what do you? I don't know how to react to that. Like epistemically, like
Yeah,
polls are weird. A lot of room for error.
we probably put too much credence in all polls because
That's
you
true.
could I mean, my whole thing was that you can get a third of people to answer the worst possible thing in any poll.
Yeah, the
And
wording, the
also,
wording with that last one was weird.
or if you're asking them about things like conspiracy theories, I think this is stuff I read about, from Jesse Walker, who we like to shout out. If you're asking people about, like, do you believe in lizard people and stuff, like, I don't know, like, are you getting sincere, like,
Exactly.
how did you
On some
it's just
level, they don't take it seriously, so why it could be a joke answer. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I can see the temptation if you're talking not Holocaust things, because that's bullshit, but something
Yeah,
it seems very silly, very independent, even up to
harmless.
JFK, maybe even 9/11 conspiracy theories, where you're like, I don't know, and so you answer in the
Well, I think
affirmative,
that's push. The conspiracy mind is a weird place. I think you're push. I think some of your examples you acknowledge are pushing it, but
Yes,
clearly there
me
are,
too.
and obviously lizard people is one of those that's only really like apparently benign, because I've interacted with many people that are
Right,
like, oh,
right.
what's a fun conspiracy theory? Oh, there's lizard people. And it's like, well, I have some bad news for you on who they think the
Yeah,
lizard people are. Who they think most people are actually disguised as lizards. Like, I have some bad news for you. So there's really, I don't think there's a benign conspiracy, because there's no such thing as a benign. It's just degrees. Like, and as soon as you are inculcated into conspiratorial thinking, whether it's lizards or what, then it is a direct line slowly to, oh, okay, well, there's a cover up of something benign. Okay, but who did the cover up? Who would have that power? Okay, who? What
right.
else are they covering up? Like, it's this.
Group that I secretly distrust, or the group that lots of other people
Yeah,
distrust, or oops,
yeah,
oh,
and it's not always. I think sometimes the bigotry and anti-Semitism is huge with conspiracies. And in some ways is the ultimate one. I think sometimes it
some of the
comes
most classic.
it comes out at the end or towards the end of the process rather than the beginning. I obviously there are some people who begin anti-Semitic and then they start looking at history and they're like, oh well, I'm anti-Semitic. Clearly the Holocaust must have been faked. But I think some people also, and I feel like I know this firsthand, unfortunately, they don't start with anti-Semitism. They start with general distrust of the world and of institutions, and then they go and go and go, and they find more and more cover-ups and more whatever things to
I know.
doubt, and then they get to something like the Holocaust and they're like, well, all right, well, that was a cover-up or close to it. Well, why would they cover that up? Why are all these apparent victims lying? And it's like, so you can only end up with anti-Semitism after that, even if you didn't start there. If you and
Yeah,
if you only think of it for reasons of mere skepticism, you still have to end up there as a conclusion, unfortunately.
you need more than skepticism. I mean, you say distrusting institutions, and I'm sure you and I advocate for distrusting all sorts of
Oh, sure,
institutions,
yeah,
but
but it's degrees, and it's which, and it's like, are you distrusting in general, or are you just distrusting of the things you don't like, and you put insanely high trust in these like weird guys you're listening to on the internet for some reason. Like that's the
yeah,
thing. It's like these people they put massive amounts of trust in the Alex Jones and in the David Icks, that they've supposedly done the research. They write all these books. They lambast you with sources and information and facts and connections, and quote unquote. And so it's really just trust of a different sort, and it's the depressing way in which contrarianism becomes defining yourself by the other by everyone else, just like you were before, but in the opposite direction.
yeah. I mean, I've recently realized, or I tried to use to no avail, but like people who don't trust health institutions, and there's always, there's problems.
Sure.
I think that fish oil and turmeric and bromelain makes my horrible joints feel better. I truly do believe that, and the FDA hasn't yet agreed with me. But generally speaking, my God, are there a lot of quacks? My God, is the barrier to entry to being a quack much lower than being a medical doctor?
That's
But
true.
also, many a person who doesn't trust the medical industry trusts their mechanic. You know,
That's funny.
they will go on the highway at 70 miles per hour, risking life and
There
limb quite
you
easily,
go.
and they know nothing about cars. The mechanic could have done anything to their car.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Um, almost everybody trusts certain institutions or experts,
Sure.
and they put their lives in their hands, and yet somehow medicine is uniquely bad. Yeah, okay, it's the body. The body seems more intimate, but
No, I mean, you make a great point. I mean, the role of trust is so underrated in just our own personal knowledge and view of the world down to its very foundations, and then all the scaffolds that we build on top of that. I mean, just take something very basic to me is the shape of the Earth. Is I have never seen with my two eyes that the Earth is round. Maybe when I went to the Empire State Building, I could see a curvature, obviously, but even then, that could be anything. That's not the Earth looks like what it's depicted as to me in scientific textbooks and all those things. And I'll never know with my own two eyes from looking at it from the moon or from space that the Earth looks like I'm being told it looks like. There's the role of trust, especially in modern complex society and the division of labor and consequent division of knowledge. Like that's a great example. The mechanic and putting your life in the hands of your mechanic is a great analogous example to what we're talking about.
I think flat Earth is also a great example of something that we also probably recently would have thought was almost a benign conspiracy theory.
Sure.
I recently read a book, Kelly Weil, book called Off the Edge, which was a short history of the concept of flat eartherism.
Mm.
And a lot of it has foundations even in like 19th century of like sort of trolly, ironic like groups. Like, isn't it silly that people believe this? And a lot of that turning into sort of a sincere thing. Since then, like now and back in the day, it's been like a bizarre hybrid of people who sincerely believe it, people who are trolling and somehow perpetuate it, and then it's particularly strange. But it's obviously more common than we would like, and
Yeah.
I confess, reading about it, I don't understand the mindset. Like, I'm not saying I will never believe anything, I'll never be fooled by anything, but people who are like, yeah, I looked up one YouTube video and then I watched 5 YouTube videos and and then I was a flat earther. Because I've discussed with my friend about how we've gone in the opposite direction thanks to the internet. We're very like, how do I know this is true, in a way that is the opposite of how do I know this is true. Like, we I don't know.
Well, I think I don't know if it's gotten better or worse. I sometimes think that again, a lot of conspiracies are just more visible now. I mean, on the topic of Jesse Walker, who you mentioned, I mean, he has that great book on how conspiracies have been really commonplace throughout American history, all the way to the founding. And there's something like in the human mind, the quirk of the human mind that looks for intention, looks for purpose and patterns.
That's not so terrible.
No.
I do not really specifically believe in many conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
I do feel like there are certain events where there's more that could have happened that we don't know about. A lot of credible people think there were more people involved in the Oklahoma City bombing than were identified ever.
Sure.
The Bin Laden killing raid, we never saw a photo. I don't think he's like in a cell under the Pentagon right now. But did different shit happen? Were there some lies? Was some stuff not released?
Well,
sure.
No, I mean, I think it's important to resist that. It's not the opposition to conspiracy theories isn't a set of views on certain historical matters necessarily. It's an opposition to a certain mindset and a certain way of thinking about historical matters. Plenty of things turned out to be what we would call a conspiracy theory. With the Gulf of Tonkin is probably a great example of that. With
no one would believe in MK Ultra, which we also they got rid of most of the documentation.
There's plenty, and they have degrees of salience and maybe believability and plausibility. It's the point is just I don't like thinking of it as conspiracy theories come true. I just like thinking of it as obviously we're always revising and reconsidering in light of new evidence certain historical matters. Conspiracy theories is a way of thinking about that stuff that's erroneous and prone to, again, putting trust in obvious quacks that don't deserve it, and going for lines of reasoning that don't make any sense and that take absence of evidence as evidence, for instance, things like that.
I mean, if you have no trust in consensus, especially say medical consensus, then that's a real problem. Because the thing with, I'm just going to go full vaccine here, with like the COVID vaccine, the sheer number of people who took it and were willing to take it, and people don't risk their own bodies and their own selves. Like, there are horror stories about like the 80s when they sent tainted blood to Africa. I don't know if it was like to help hemophiliacs, except oops, it had AIDS.
Right.
Like, there's always horrible shit you can learn about.
Yeah.
But a sort of consensus of like, this will probably help everyone, I find pretty convincing. But I think honestly, the bigger it is in that way for some people, the more they're sure that it's like a depopulation.
And that's where they have to start denying your own reality, your own experiences. The people you know, the people you love and trust, all of a sudden have to be agents of the system. The Matrix.
Or they're all about to drop dead, except for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, The Matrix is a beautiful movie and story, but it's one of the most dangerous ones. And if you start telling yourself you're Neo, and you can take it in any direction you want, and you can make anything The Matrix. And
The Matrix and the X-Files were both bad for human society.
I hate to think that they're net bads, but like all increases in autonomy and the democratization, of reason and critical thinking that we sort of developed over the last 2,000, especially the last 300 years, it's got pros and cons, and it lets a lot of people believe a lot of weird and wacky things. But the process hopefully lets us overcome that and believe better, more true things as well.
Yeah, that would be good.
That would be good.
The one thing I do think almost people still don't mention as often the idea of racism as a conspiracy theory. Like the anti-Semitism part, like that's the most obvious useful example. But I think in general, a lot of prejudices, it's like a conspiracy theory, and
sure,
both, like the JFK assassination or some racism, I've got it. Like, I figured it out, the key, and now I get how everything works and how everything's set up. And, from like anti-black racism to 9/11, like, you can be like, oh, I get it now. They were lying to me, but now it's all clear. And I think people have a desire to have that revelation, but they also have what to me is totally antithetical to my mindset, a desire that there'll be a final boss, or maybe like a couple of them.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then if you defeat them, everything's gonna be magical.
Oh, sure.
Because those bosses are, they're puppeteering everything and they're in charge and stuff. And that's not how it works.
Yeah.
But I think people like to think that it does, because then if you get them, you can, I don't know.
Yeah.
Paradise on earth follows, I guess.
I think it's, to use the religious phrase, it's an eschatology of another kind. The end of history is coming, and we're going to expose them for the lies, and we're going to inaugurate this new society of truth or something, and I'm leading the way, commenting on the internet. And, there's a great quote. I can't remember who said it. And it references socialism, but you can put in your liberatory theory of choice. But anti-Semitism is the socialism of fools. Conspiracy, racism. It's the liberation of fools. It's wanting to replace one people with power with another people with power, and it's thinking that power is just this thing that, has been around for a while, but now we're going to eradicate it completely, like once and for all, and we don't have to worry about it again, as well. And it's an incredibly, obviously, anyone who's faced any sort of despair or any sort of hopelessness about the state of the world can see why that has such great appeal and power over people's minds. No pun intended, but obviously it is a fool's errand. It really is.
I guess one last thing that I forgot to mention a while back was when you were talking about Holocaust denial in reference to distrust of institutions. And I was thinking, what a horrible idea that, what actually occurred in the Holocaust, like the historical fact of it, is an institution. Solely because various institutions, mainstream ones, acknowledge it sometimes, or they're like, ergo, what? It's an institutional. in Europe, which I like America's insane free speech
Yeah, me too.
protection. I get why Europe has laws
Yeah,
because the Holocaust happened there. Like
yeah,
I understand.
yeah.
It's not my favorite type of
No,
speech law means, but I get it. But therefore, it must be a lie because you can get in legal trouble for
oh,
denying the
of
Holocaust.
course, of course. So much erroneous thinking that is masquerading as free thinking, right?
But again, with the Holocaust, like it's this like to be nicer to these people and assume it's not just prejudice. If institutions are repeating this fact, there must be something suspect. But it's not an institution that tells us the Holocaust happened. It was an institutional, industrialized killing. But it's millions of people who both died and saw it. It's
Oh,
the
sure.
opposite
Yeah,
of an institution. It's
yeah,
millions and millions of individuals who can vouch for the
yeah,
reality of it.
yeah. And
So
that gets to a lot of why the conspiratorial mindset is erroneous, because people see conspiracy when there is emergence, like what you said. There's a bottom up, there's a decentralized, all of the testimony and of everyone involved. There isn't some top down plot where a few people figured out this is the story, and then no, like we see conspiracy when oftentimes it's actually just emergence.
or I just think eventually you're not going to get everyone to learn what is good evidence and what isn't, but
Yeah,
tying the Holocaust to medical consensus, there's more, there's debate within medical consensus
sure.
for various things, but if
Yeah,
you have
of course.
no trust in it whatsoever, you've screwed yourself over completely.
Oh yes, yes. I mean, at some point, the conspiracy theorist has to completely turn away from the world. They can't trust again the loved ones. Can't trust your own eyes. Then it really becomes
Yeah.
like the Matrix. How do I know I'm not in a simulation that the puppeteers have crafted to? And David Icke tries to incorporate something like this because now I realize I feel like I'm saying something they don't believe in, but it turns out no, there are conspiracy people who take this line of thought further.
You have to have some tiny bit of trust in the sheer quantity of people who have said something. And that gets a little dicey because I just started talking myself into like, well, aren't you mostly an atheist and religion is, yeah, but like we know the Holocaust happened. We have a bunch of evidence. We have millions and millions of people who saw it. We have perpetrators who are like, no, that happened. I was there. And
Yeah,
we have people fundamentally misunderstanding. For example, if you update a death count and you lower it, and you saw this in COVID too,
yeah,
you would see
exactly.
this. That's a good sign. If
Yeah,
you're adjusting, death counts are tricky in everything I've ever heard of. If you are great, fewer people died, and you presumably you have more data and you were closer to accurate.
yeah.
Or if people had slightly different experiences, my God, it must all be a lie. No, if everyone had the exact same experience,
Exactly.
that would be much stranger.
Exactly.
If no story changed, if there was no variation,
And
that would be bizarre.
And if that for some reason was the case, or if we never adjusted anything, then they would take that as evidence of, oh well, that's what I mean. Everything is evidence for the conspiracy in that mindset. Like, oh, if you didn't change anything, well, that's weird. Wouldn't you have found new information to change it? Like, clearly, there's strangeness there. So, yeah, it's
Many of
unfortunate.
them don't get that far, but that's true. I mean, this is why it's sort of why I have a dull headache just thinking about this.
I love to give you a dull headache in our podcast.
No, this isn't really moot, but other people have to get themselves out of these mindsets themselves. People help
Sure.
other people all the time, but there's something that has to shift in other people. There has to be a tiny light, maybe just a night light.
Yeah, I don't know. I think on some level it is a matter of I don't know, pulling yourself up by your cognitive bootstraps. It is irreducibly individual in some way. And I think all the conditioning and all of the environmental concerns, or however you want to phrase those things, don't excuse anyone in an ultimate sense for believing terrible things. But they play a role too. I don't know.
I'm always waiting for a redemption story, even with the worst people. And we've talked about that. Like,
Love a good redemption story.
Um,
Well, I think this might be a good note to wrap up on here. We've we've fully repudiated the conspiracy theorists. I don't think we have to worry about them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, this is the end of the podcast. Man, you just gotta know how humans work a little bit, and you gotta know how institutions work a little bit, and know the type of flaws. You need like Hayek secretly. Sorry,
Oh, sure.
social anarchists. You
Well,
need
that's what too.
knowledge
What I was
process.
referencing earlier with emergence. I mean, that's kind of what was on my mind too. You know, there are these two forms. I mean, we have conspiracy in a basic sense all the time. We cooperate. We're conspiring to do the podcast right now. It's not that's but there's also emergence. There's unintended consequences. There's things that come about that no one was secretly plotting to bring about behind the curtain.
And just because the institution or the in charge guy says something doesn't mean it didn't happen. Like you
Yeah.
need more data.
Yeah. Well, I'm conspiring.
Right.
I'm conspiring to wrap up our show to let our listeners go back to their petty lives.
They're small.
Their small petty lives. That when they leave.
I don't know what kind of supervillain way to talk about that.
I know the hour to hour and a half they watch our show is when they live life to the fullest and they feel sort of the grace of life. Really, you know. So sorry to bring that to an end, viewers, but enjoy the rest of your day, which will be sure to decline in quality.
Wow. Well, because the rest of your day is not going to be my birthday or International.
Well, the rest of the day is those things.
Well, they're not watching this now.
Oh,
or as my brother said, Judas Priest album release day, which
that's really what we're here for. I mean, I've never listened to Judas Priest, but not purposely.
No,
but
I enjoyed his enthusiasm, wishing me a good day for all three of those events. So I'm gonna go do something for my birthday, like I don't know.
Go party. Go out on the town. Go out on the strip. You know.
Now, probably try to get some sushi or something delicious.
That sounds good. That sounds like a good birthday in my book.
Mm-hmm. Well, Corey, well, audience that will be here one day, I had a good time as always.
Me too. Grand time.
We will see you again next time, audience. Corey, lovely as always.
Yes. See you in some indeterminate date in the future. Maybe your next birthday. Who knows?
Let's do before that, please.
All right, we'll do one of your unbirthdays. Solid.
April.
Solid.
Springtime podcast.
Do you have an unbirthday in April?
Easter Bunny. What is an unbirthday? I forget.
Unbirthday is every day that's not your birthday.
Oh yeah, no, I have a couple.
You have a couple of those in April? All right, yeah. Me too. That's so funny. We have the same unbirthday. Nice.
That's true. So I'll see you then on many of the unbirthdays that we share.
Let's do it.